All right, welcome to the All Access Entertainment Podcast. I am your host, Joseph Bruen. We're back this week with a special guest once again. This time it is Tommy Two's himself. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow collector, Thomas Hernandez. Welcome to the show.
Joe, thank you for having me. Thank you for doing this podcast for the collectors that sorely need some insight, such as myself, and education. It's just an honor to be here and to be a part of your movement here.
Oh, well, thank you, man. It's a pleasure to have you. And, this is overdue, something we've kind of wanted to do. I've talked about doing this type of thing even before I had the podcast. So now we're able to pull it off and, throw some info out there to the fans and really go in depth about different aspects of the world of collecting and promo photos and autographs and whatever it may be. But let's start with you. Tommy Two's, of course, that's how you're known in the world of the internet. Of course, the Basement of Champions. You're the curator of the Basement of Champions. Thomas Hernandez, why don't you tell us what that's all about? Tell us about your Facebook page. Tell us about your group and how it started and, everything we need to know about it.
Sure, absolutely. So I've been in love with professional wrestling since as long as I can remember. Started when I was very young, and it just manifested into, I would say, a borderline obsession. Being an only child, I didn't have a brother or sister to kind of play with or grow with. And I felt like those wrestlers filled in that gap for me. Fast forward to COVID times, after falling out with wrestling for a couple of years, being that I had a child, I went into the military. I was in the Marine Corps for 9/11, and I just lost touch with it, which I'm sure you've heard that same story from plenty of folks our age. But when COVID came around, I was locked up in my house just like everyone else, and I sort of moved over to the wrestling pages. I believe it was a collectibles page that I stumbled upon that was moderated by Kevin Nasta, and there was what was called a razzle available. There was 10 slots, and there was this Hulk Hogan Panini Prism card that was a graded 10, and I paid my $10 to get into the razzle, and I won. And I won the razzle. The card arrived at my house, and I opened it up, and something changed. Something changed in me, because I felt like I was, Hulk Hogan was my all-time favorite growing up, and I had a piece of him. I had almost a piece of equity in my hand of Hulk Hogan. As small as that equity may have been, it was a piece of him. It was something he did at some point, and I owned it. And all of that just registered with me. And I think that, coupled with the loneliness that COVID brought about, it was a firework. I was like, I want everybody who loved wrestling like I did to have a piece like this of that history, to be able to, just go back in time mentally and get that same feeling. So I started an Instagram first. And I also had a Facebook, I think it was a page, not a group. And I started to post on Instagram, and then I would then send that to Facebook, and it would kind of post at the same time all of the pieces that I would collect from that group. I started to look at other groups. I started to join the lives that were available because there was so many lives available in COVID times. There was Sky Signatures, Andrew's lives, T-Mart. T-Mart was a big part of my building my collection as well. And I would just purchase. I'd see something I liked. I was not as concerned about the price tag as I was concerned about the provenance. I wanted to make sure and know that what I was buying was real. And if that included speaking to a collector for months on end about wrestling and about their times in professional wrestling and their favorite wrestlers, or baptizing their babies, or whatever it took, I would make friends with these folks. And eventually they would show me their collection, and eventually, we'd make some deals. I live very close to JSA. I am only about a 40-minute drive to their New Jersey office. So I started to buy lots after that. I would buy lots of autographs, and I would take those lots to the JSA office. I would get them certified, and I'd bring them back. I'd sell them, and I'd keep the good ones for myself. And that's how the collection slowly started to build. After that, as Instagram and Facebook blew up, I started the memorabilia group. And now amongst all of the social platforms, we have over 100,000 followers total. Awesome. So that's how it started.
Nice. So yeah, COVID was an interesting time all the way around, but especially in the hobby, collecting kind of became something new for a lot of people. A lot of people dipping in that, you may have never seen before, never heard of before. Everybody's kind of in the same boat. They've got a lot of time on their hands. A lot of them are out of work. Most people are at that period. And, let's get our hands into collecting. Let's give this a try. Or, I did this as a kid or a young adult. Maybe it's time to start again. And, people just trying it out. So it was interesting to see all of those collectors coming in and attempting to, build up their collections or start from scratch. And, it gave me the opportunity to meet a lot of new people like yourself and talk to all kinds of, aspiring collectors. And that was pretty cool. Some people were in it for the long haul. Some were not. Some people were in it for their passion. Some of them were in it to try to make a quick buck, which is fine because COVID, obviously, people are out of work. People are trying to scramble and figure out, all right, what can I do to, flip the switch and turn things around for the positive. So there was just a lot going on all at the same time. And like you mentioned, the early days, you saw T-Mart promotions, Marty, you saw Auction Andrew. I remember Think Signatures, Nick Christie early on. I would watch him during COVID. Kevin Nasta, you mentioned. And of course, Dan Sky, Sky autographs. So there was a lot going on at that time. And then, not only were there the virtual, collectibles that were for sale, but we were also seeing the virtual signings. So you were seeing K&S WrestleFest, and you were seeing T-Mart doing that as well. Even Andrew did a few of those, couple of those. And, those started getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I actually joined on with Nick from Think Inc. I probably booked maybe 100 guests, for that platform during that time period. So it kind of kept me busy and gave me something to do and still keep my toe in the business, which was nice. And, I've always been a collector. But during this time period, it obviously introduced me to all these new people. So it kind of gave me a fresh just a big gust of fresh air. It's like, all right, let's talk to these guys and see what they're all about. And I've always tried to help the new people. Any questions, like you do yourself, but the amount of questions that come in, you'd be surprised. There are so many people asking, and I'm glad to help at any time. So anybody
And
who
Joe,
ever has any questions, just let me know.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the education that I received when I joined this community back in 2020, especially from you, because my collection eventually started to move towards the original promo field, which you did such a wonderful, patient job in educating me on, being that these are, such unique photos that they weren't even meant to be collected. They were part of these press kits that Vince would send to these new towns to get a warmer welcome. And I had no idea that there could be even any sort of difference in an 8x10 photo and an original promo. And then by the time you were done with me, I think I became an asset to the community, where now I can pass that education along to some of the new folks that come in as well. So yeah, education on what to collect and how to narrow down what I wanted the nucleus of my collection to represent is majorly credited to you and your help along the way.
No, I mean, it's been my pleasure. And like I said, so original promo photos, are something that maybe somebody looking in from the outside, they don't really know how to tell, is that an 8x10? Is it a promo photo? You wouldn't even think to ask that question. What is a promo photo? Aren't they all promo photos? When you're looking at it. But yeah, once you get into it, deeper into the hobby, you see that, some photos are printed at CVS, and some say Fujifilm on the back because they're just Xeroxed, and then some are original from the photographers, from the companies that they were, taken. And it's night and day when it comes to the two, obviously. But original promo photos, to me, are just so special. I received my first one in 1995. My mom wrote a letter to the World Wrestling Federation for my birthday, and they were gracious enough to send me an authentic original promo photo signed authentically by Bret Hart. And it wasn't a secretarial autograph, you could tell. And, I've met Bret over the years many times. It was Bret Hart's signature. So, that was so special to me. Even though I was young, I was probably 11 or 12, I really took care of that photo. I wasn't like, some kids will just be like, oh, cool, and then toss it into a pile. I always protected it. I didn't know anything about top loaders back then, but I kept it in a drawer, and I kept it in between a magazine. It was always in mint condition for years and years, and I just thought it was such a cool thing. So, I had received paper promos, as they're referred to, at autograph signings, or autograph mats, sometimes referred to, but that was the first official promo photo, and it was a P series promo. And for those who don't know, there is a P series in the world of collecting when it comes to promo photos, starting with, P1, 01, and it'll go all the way until Natalia Neidhart, who ended up being the very last P number. For whatever reason, they ended the P series. When you ask the photographers themselves, there really was no great rhyme or reason. They're not even sure, what they were keeping track of, because it is very inconsistent, the P series. There are numbers that are repeated. There are multiple promos that have sometimes the same P number. So there are some errors and some flaws in the system, but basically they were just trying to keep track of all of the, the promos that they had. But there are always, and that's kind of the part of the exciting part of it, is you're never going to get all the answers, but it's like, it's kind of like one of those things you just think about, like, man, I wonder why that's in place, or I wonder why this is, so you're always learning new things. I mean, 10 years from now, we can find out a little tiny factoid about promo photos that we didn't know. It's, oh, okay, wow, cool. There's always something to learn. So
Ever the beacon of knowledge you are, Joe.
Yeah, yeah. Even if you're an expert at it, or you think you're an expert at it, you're always going to learn something new. So when it comes to original promo photos, what was your first original promo? When did you make that transition?
That is a tough question. My first original promo. I think my first original promo might have been the Macho Man Liz dual signed wedding promo.
Nice.
I didn't know that it was an original promo when I bought it. I think it ended up falling in my lap. I think it was you actually that ended up informing me that these wedding photos were a series of I believe 8 original promo photos that the WWF at the time released back in, I think, 1992 to market their wedding. I bought it from a local collector here in New Jersey, who had lost his mom, and he really wanted to get a nice tattoo to memorialize her. And so it was a match made in heaven, a
Yeah.
second one. But thinking about that Bret Hart promo that you received back when you were a kid, and thinking about that Hulk Hogan card that I received in the mail that day back in 2020, I see a common factor amongst those higher echelon collectors who see the value in the older pieces, who see the value in the rarer pieces. And that common factor, I think, is that we all feel like we owe wrestling a debt of gratitude for one reason or another. Wrestling ended up filling in some sort of a gap in our lives that needed filling. And these pieces all connect to me in the Basement of Champions as puzzle pieces to fill that gap perfectly in what I need in my life that started as a kid. So I actually received this Macho Man and Liz promo in person. This is the one. And I remember sending it to you. This is before I had it encased.
Right.
I sent it to you, and I said, "Hey, check this out." And that's when you told me, "Hey, this is an original promo photo." I was like, "Oh, wow, that's cool." And I think that's where my education on original promo photos started. What I like about this promo especially is it got a grade of 8.5 in total. And that doesn't seem special, I guess, to many people because it's sort of a low grade for an autograph. But there was some arguing going on in PSA, I believe, because I don't see too many autograph grades get anything 0.5. So I think they were arguing between 8 and 9, and I think they eventually settled on 8.5. But this is absolutely one of my favorite pieces in the Basement of Champions, and this is in the exhibition collection. So this is on the wall.
Such a nice piece, and what a way to start. What a way to kick off the official promo collection. And you touched on it a little bit before, and for the fans that don't know, that came in a packet from World Wrestling Federation. You could get a packet of the wedding photos. It would come sealed in plastic originally, and it would be a set. They were all 8.5 by 11, roughly 8.25 by size. And there was an invitation, which was the same size. It was kind of a promo photo itself. So you had the invitation, you had the different photos. Obviously, it was a wedding shoot. So you saw, I think there was one with maybe Macho Man outside of the limo or something. There were a couple different shots, and they're really cool pieces, and overall, the set is probably, worth around 200, 250 unsigned, somewhere in that boat. And it doesn't really fluctuate too much. It kind of stays right around there for the most part, but obviously when you're, when you're talking about a dual signed, in case, that's a little bit of a different story, right?
Well, the dual signed was actually part of a contest that the WWF at the time ran during SummerSlam 92. They sent out 100 of these with a letter, and the letter just says, "Congratulations, you've won this dual signed Macho Man Liz promo photo." But the person I purchased this from, his name was Thomas as well. He won the contest.
Wow.
And this came directly from the WWE, which was, makes it even, that provenance factor for me is perfect. I love that.
And that hits home for me. Macho Man Randy Savage was the first wrestling superstar that I ever met. And I met him in 1991. It was at the Almax Food Festival, which was at the Providence Civic Center. And, back then, I think it was literally $5 to get in. And what it was they had just aisles and aisles on the arena floor, makeshift aisles made up of basically every product that Almax Supermarket sold. And they were sampling every item. And you get a grab bag. They would have, free sample sizes of a lot of the foods to give you. And you just fill it up as you went. You try all the samples as you go. Sometimes they'd have a Harlem Globetrotter there. 1991, they had the Bushwhackers there. It was always something special, something cool. I always loved it as a kid. I went to two different ones in 91, like I said, Bushwhackers, and the other one was Macho Man. And, you get to meet whoever is there for free, as long as you can get in the line in time. So, meeting Macho Man was just an amazing experience. He was everything you'd hope he was. He was over the top. He took the time. He talked to you. He asked you questions. He was just he was first class. So, Macho Man Randy Savage, one of the greats of all time, without a doubt.
And I tell you that I sure wish that I started to do the convention scenes back when you had the smarts to start doing it. That gap in my life where I sort of fell away from professional wrestling was probably the money spot for meeting some of the folks that were my heroes back in, the early 90s, even into the 2000s. And, I only started going to conventions in, 2020 and beyond when they opened back up after COVID. But I've seen some of the photos that you have with some of the wrestlers that the jealousy waves just come right over me, and they immediately get eliminated by my happiness for you that you were able to meet those folks, because I know you and I are kindred spirits in that way, that we see them as larger than life. Yeah,
without a doubt. I mean, I was very lucky. My mom, I have to give all credit to her. She would take me to all of the signings. Whenever there was a signing announced and we found out about it, she was nice enough to take the time out of her schedule to wait in all these lines and take me to all these signings. And, back then in the 90s, WWF would do these signings everywhere. If they were doing an on sale event, or if they were maybe in town that evening, well, then they're going to be at a furniture store that afternoon doing a free signing and maybe raffling off some tickets or something. And, my mom would take me to all of them. Alpert's Furniture with the Godwins, and I remember winning backstage passes and front row seats at that. And it was just larger than life. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this, and being front row for the Attitude Adjustment Tour in 96 there was just an experience that I'll never forget. And, being able to meet these guys, Ahmed Johnson and the 1-2-3 Kid and Savio, all these people from the 90s, such a cool experience. And 2004 was my first convention. So there was a gap there for me too, but that's also because conventions weren't really a thing. Fan fests weren't really a thing in the New England area anyway. So once it kicked up in 2004, I was like, oh my gosh, this is, I have to go to this. So that's where it all started for me.
In 1994, the WWF had a promotion in the Poconos. I'm pretty sure I sent you some of the footage from that.
Yeah.
It was a one-time thing. I think they were trying to maybe build a partnership with them, but I guess it fell through. But I got to meet Doink the Clown. I got to meet Shawn Michaels. I got to meet Paul Bearer, Stan Lane. And these folks, we got to have breakfast with them. And at that time, Sega Genesis had come out with a new wrestling game. I believe it was a WrestleMania game. And so we had a tournament with them where we all got to play with them. And if you won, you got a prize. And have Paul Bearer saying happy birthday to me on camera, as well as Doink. I believe in '94 that was Matt Bourne. I could be wrong.
94.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was Ray Apollo.
That was Ray Apollo. Okay. So
yeah,
that was Ray Apollo. He had all his makeup on the whole time. And Tatanka was there as well, which he actually, I spoke to him about that event, and he remembers it. Yeah, that guy has such a great memory, Chris Chavez. But that was one of my parents told me nothing about this event. They drove to school to pick me up during lunch, and I thought maybe I had a dentist appointment or something. And they had packed my grandmother in the car, and they said, well, we're going to the Poconos. And I said, well, what for? And they said, well, there's a breakfast happening with the wrestlers, and we wanted to surprise you. And I gushed. I couldn't believe it. It was to have my parents there, my grandmother there, and all the wrestlers. I just felt like this was like the perfect world, and I never wanted that weekend to end.
Yeah.
I still have the postcard from that weekend, and of course all the footage. But connecting parents, parents connecting you to professional wrestling, it just makes it all the more special. Just
the
like
nice thing
with mom. Mm-hmm.
The nice thing about those moments is, all these years later, here you are talking about it. So it was essentially a weekend that never ended,
Yeah. The memories continue to this day. I have all the footage. My father was very adamant about taking very slow, very particular photos and videos of everything that was happening, even the small things. I got to stand inside of Yokozuna's casket because they brought the casket. So I got a photo of me inside that double wide, double deep casket. You're right. The memories continue on. So it really did never end.
So you mentioned your family. They were obviously supportive in you being a wrestling fan and being able to do something like that. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about, did they ever watch wrestling before you? Did they ever have any memories saying anything growing up as a kid, on their behalf?
Never had a single interest in it, my family.
Okay.
They could care less about professional wrestling. What made my family so wonderful is that if I loved it, they supported me. My father would always tell me when it was on. He would call upstairs, say, Tommy, Channel 4, check it out, and he, let me know when it was on. He surprised me by taking me to Washington, D.C., got me some wrestling tickets. We had some nosebleed tickets to see Hogan versus Bossman. No, I'm sorry. Hogan, it was Bossman versus Nails, and then Hogan took on someone else. I don't remember who, but I remember him posing for probably a good 10 minutes after the match, and people were still filing out, and he was still posing. But they were always so supportive. I always had all the dolls, the LJNs. I still have them down the basement. Of course, I still don't play with them from time to time or anything like that. But I still have all my LJNs. They would buy me the new ones when they came out. When the Hasbros replaced the LJNs, they were buying me the Hasbros. I was the only child, and they did not have a pot to piss in. To be honest with you, Joe, I don't know how they afforded to give me all of those dolls and all those memories, but it was important to them. To be able to support the things that I loved. And now I'm able to, thank God, I'm in a position where I'm able to support my daughter and her passions, which does not include professional wrestling, by the way. And that's okay. What she loves now is her education. She loves her skincare. She's an esthetician. and she's getting ready to start PA school in January to become a physician's assistant. So I'm able to take what I learned from my parents supporting me in professional wrestling and my hobby and the things that I love, and I'm able to kind of turn that into a generic support system and apply that to my daughter's life now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, turning back the page a little bit again to Tommy Two's Basement of Champions. What are some of your favorite items that you don't own personally, but you've seen gone through the page? You've seen them sell, you've seen them come through, and you're like, man, look at these pieces. Do you have any favorites that stick out? Any memories?
Something that I don't own?
Yeah.
Your AWA promo.
Oh, the AWA.
Your AWA promo, only really because of the story behind it with Larry, the Axe, and Kurt. I thought that was really an important piece to the hobby. I love that promo. I think it's great.
It's funny you mentioned it because this past weekend at Rhode Island Comic-Con, I got it certified for the first time.
Oh, you did?
And
good for you.
We have an LOA on the way, and he said it takes about 13 to 18 weeks. And I was very nervous because he was trying, even though I knew it's all authentic, you know what I mean? I've been collecting the autographs on there for 20 years or more.
Yeah.
But JSA right off the bat, like, oh, you got Kurt Hennig on there. I don't know. I mean, he's highly, it's just like doubt right off the bat. And I'm like, no, these are legit. And so I handed it off to them. And by the end of the weekend, got it back. And they said, yeah, you're all set. This is all legit. And I said, well, of course it is, So I feel better about it because even if I knew, I know that it's real, but if it got denied, it would still hurt me just as much as it being fake, because it's like, man, you want to appreciate that piece to the fullest. And if you have a big void like that, it kind of takes the wind out of your sails. So I was so excited that, it's all good to go. I added Ric Flair on it as the last person because I forgot that Ric Flair early on in his career was a part of AWA for 2 years. And so I never added him on there. And we've got the Nature Boy, we've got Piper, we've got Hulk Hogan, we've got Kurt Hennig, like you said, Larry the Axe Hennig. The only piece that I've ever seen, I believe, with Kurt and his father on the same piece, especially right side by side. And Larry holding that piece and just almost in tears and saying, wow, my son held this piece, my son signed this. And it was like, man, wow. To be a part of that moment was just surreal. And, you got Chief Wahoo McDaniel on there. You have the Rock and Roll Express, Larry Zbyszko, Nick Bockwinkel, the very last AWA champion, Jerry the King Lawler. You've got Boris Zukov and Don Morocco and Rick Martel and like Rene Goulet, Ken Patera, all these people who a lot have passed away. A lot don't do signings anymore. So I couldn't start that project now and get half of these people. So there's 26 autographs on there total. Ric Flair was the last one to be added. New England Fan Fest a few months ago, I added Sergeant Slaughter. And it's just certainly my prized possession. It means a lot to me. And, it was a passion project. So it's something that I was in all those lines. I got all of those autographs. I put so much time and effort into it. And, 20 years later, here we are. We're wrapping it up. It's sealed and signed, and we're going to put it on display now to just kind of, it was already on display, but now it's going to be on display with kind of a little bit more prominence,
It's a roots of wrestling piece. It's where the rubber meets the road for any collector. And the fact that you put autographs on there yourself, you stood in those lines, it makes it the perfect holy trinity of what any collector is sought after. They're seeking to have, I believe, themselves absorbed into some piece somehow associated with that feeling, that kayfabe, that wonderment of that live action comic book that the wrestlers gave us growing up.
Yeah.
And that AWA piece does that for you. And I've every time I see that piece, I think I've asked you to send me that piece in the DMs multiple times, because I love bringing it to the front just to check it out. Anything else? I've been lucky and blessed enough to pretty much get everything that I want in autograph wise. But if I had a magic wand and I had access to anything that I could get my hands on memorabilia wise, I'm not a ring worn collector. Danny Deck, one of the best knowledgeable ring worn collectors out there. I am not a ring worn collector, but I would love to get my hands on the Andre the Giant singlet from WrestleMania 3. If I got my hands on that, I'd quit collecting. That would be it for me. I'd be at my my limit. You can't top that for me. It was a monumental experience. I remember watching WrestleMania 3 live, not in the stadium but on TV while it was happening, and it was the David and Goliath of our time, and it will continue. That match will continue to grow in its roots and continue to draw in new folks into professional wrestling fandom and keep people in the archives, which is I think what helps the community grow. Is those archives are the replay value on all of the archives are better than any other sport in the world. Nobody's really going back watching, the Brewers and the Yankees from 1948, unless it was, a game that, a no-hitter or something special. But you can go back and watch, any of the WrestleManias, any of the SummerSlams, and you can sit down with popcorn and be entertained.
Yeah.
As long as, someone like you who remembers all the results all the time, it may not be as entertaining, but for those just diving into the archives or new to professional wrestling, it can all be brand new material for them.
Yeah. And WWE archivist Ben Brown, he actually showed off the Andre the Giant WrestleMania 3 singlet. It's there in the warehouse. And
they got it already. Okay.
Yeah. They've got the singlet and they've got the back brace to go with it. So they've got that, yeah. But there's a video of it on YouTube.
So it'll never make it to my collection then. Okay.
Never say never. Never say never. Hey, I've seen pieces go from the WWE warehouse into private collections. Maybe they want something that you have more than what they have. It's tough with Andre the Giant, obviously, but never say never.
Yeah. If I get a couple of million laying around, maybe I'll.
Yeah. Exactly. Any other pieces come to mind that have gone through the Basement of Champions?
That have gone through, that are gone now?
Yeah, stuff that you've seen people sell that you just mind blown.
I just sold something I thought I'd never sell, which was a very popular post on Promo Photo Mania, your page. I just sold the P Series Rocky Maivia rookie promo, PSA graded 8, signed, best wishes, Rocky Maivia, WWF 97. And I was living in regret since the moment I put it in the mail. There's, that I think that has a lot to do with the market and how it's being built, because there was no amount of money that was going to make my regret go away. The only thing that we could have done was continue to add dollars to that price. And even if you would have doubled what I received for that piece, I still, would be living in regret. And I'm living in regret for selling that piece. But I saw a couple of things occur. One was the gentleman who purchased it. He had an entire collection that was centered around the rock. We had been talking about it for about a year and a half before either of us actually became serious about the deal. And I knew that he loved this piece more than I did. And that's hard for me to find in today's community. In a lot of cases, a lot of folks are looking for the flip because, sure. and I don't know that you can blame them in today's economy. Wherever you can make a dollar, I don't knock the hustle for anybody. I believe that if you can make a couple of bucks and make everybody happy, I think that that's just fine, because there is no magazine that we can go or price guide that we can go by. I know Mike Ford had put together something a couple of years ago for the original promo side of things. And, that's a very tentative price schedule, and that's also a dated price schedule. Yeah. So there's really nothing that we have solidified that we can say, yes, this is what this is worth, and this is what I'm going to sell it for. I don't usually go with what the market has to say. I go with what I feel emotionally I'll be okay with letting go for a piece, for a price that I feel will deaden that gap or deaden that blow.
Yeah.
Tommy Two's Basement of Champions, it was built, like I said earlier, to fill a gap. And every time I let something go out of the Basement of Champions, the gap gets a little bigger for me. So it may sound cliche, but whenever something leaves the basement, it's a little piece of me. And and the folks that purchase it, though, I know that they're sleeping comfortably knowing that they got a quality piece of memorabilia that was overseen for provenance, that was researched, that was questioned, and that was signed, with very little doubt left by the person that says that they signed it.
Yeah.
And that's important to me. That's important to me and the values that are held in the Basement of Champions.
And let's talk a little bit more about that promo. I don't know if you want to talk about, it's 2025. We're coming up 2026 almost. I don't know if you want to talk about what that promo sold for. You can keep that private if you'd like. But I once owned that promo. I had the debut promo signed by Rocky Maivia. It was a Rocky Maivia signature. And there are two versions of that promo. There's a 1997 stamp and there's a 1996. So there are actually two different, time stamps, which often happens with promo photos. I know there's a Kane that's primarily, you see the 2001 version, but there's actually a 2000, there's a 2002, it's all the same exact promo, but it's just been recycled or re-released, but that's the same case with that Rocky Maivia. There are two versions of it as far as the year stamp goes. And I sold it autographed in 2011 for $300. and in 2011, $300 for any promo photo was like, oh my gosh, that's unbelievable. How could I get that amount of money? And that just shows you how far the hobby has come, how far the world has kind of moved, and shifted with what things are worth these days. But $300 was a big deal back then. Andre the Giant, his very last P number, the black and white promo. There's also obviously the color version where he's in that kind of flowery Hawaiian shirt. Andrew Kala owns a signed version of that, which is very nice. And it could even be the same one, could be before I knew Andrew. I once bid on that very signed Andre the Giant promo. Signature looks identical, so I think it is that exact one. And I saw it on eBay. This was probably, I don't know, maybe 2008, maybe even earlier, but it was somewhere in that neighborhood when hardly anybody was collecting promos. I think I might have been one of the only ones in the New England area doing that. And I got outbid by 50 cents on the signed Andre the Giant because it ended overnight. And, I kind of sent the Hail Mary in, and it wasn't enough. And it ended up selling for just over $150.
Wow.
Signed Andre the Giant. And you want to fast forward to present day, you could get 15,000 or more for that particular Andre the Giant sign. So it's just it's crazy. So, if you have those opportunities where it's authentic, or even if you're maybe unsure, you're kind of on the fence, is that authentic? But you can get it for the right price. It's often worth it to take that chance, and especially if it's so cheap like that. Let me just gamble it. Let me just gamble it. And
so I'll tell you the that's the sort of lesson that I've learned to price my pieces, because I'm a collector. At the heart of me, I am not really set up to sell. I don't want to sell anything that I have. I want to keep it. Honestly, I'd like to be buried with it. I also do feel like in an effort to keep these pieces alive, sharing them is really what turns them into art. It's the eyes. It's the amount of eyes that sees them, and in that process, in sharing them, I have encountered people that have made me some offers that I couldn't refuse. So seeing, and I've heard stories just like yours many times where, you talk about what you paid for something 10 years ago and you look at today's prices. Well, I'm looking at 10 years from now. And I know 10 years from now, that rock promo that I sold, which I'm not going to divulge the price out of respect for the buyer.
Sure.
If he wishes to do that, he may. But I know 10 years from now, he's going to look back and he's going to laugh at that price. He's going to tell the story. Look at this rock promo and guess how much I paid for it. And he'll tell them, and they will be like, "What? I can't believe it." I know that's going to happen for him because he's never going to let that go. And that particular promo will never lose its value. It will continue to increase in value, unless, God forbid, rock does something crazy where he just falls off the planet. And and we've had people fall from grace before. We've seen that happen, with some of our autographs. But I'm confident that the price that was set for that promo made both of us, made me happy now, but it'll make him happy in the future.
And realistically, the items themselves don't technically lose value. The only instance where something is going to lose value is, okay, maybe you only know of maybe 5 of that promo publicly known, so it's considered very rare. And all of a sudden, which has happened before, all of a sudden the photographer that took that very photo, oh man, I just unearthed, 15 more in my basement. Yeah. Okay, so now we've got 20, 25 out there in the public. Still rare. Obviously, there are more than 25 people in this world. But yeah, it's going to bring the value down just a little bit, So that's really the only thing that can, and not only that, but I guess the lack of interest in the hobby. The lack of interest in the hobby, which goes up, it goes down. It's like a roller coaster. That can also determine whether a promo is obviously going to sell for the price that it should sell or not. But really, all the way through, promos aren't losing the value. It's just maybe the hobby at times losing the interest. Though they hold their own, and they're always going to be worth that, and continue to increase. But you have to be dedicated. You have to have all that interest in order for people to actually make the transaction. But, an Andre the Giant promo photo signed, say nobody's biting right now. Of course, that's not the case, but I'm just using that as an example. Nobody's biting. Oh, okay, so I guess it's only worth $500. Well, no, that's not the case. It still holds its value. It's just nobody's willing to bite. And you have those moments where people are willing to spend. COVID's a perfect example. Everybody has stimulus checks coming in. They're, oh man, I'm going to be a collector now, and I'm going to buy this and that and this. Then they realize it doesn't matter how much money you have. Some of these promos you can type in on eBay. You're not going to find it for 10 years, 20 years. I've been collecting for over 30 years, and I'm still, every once in a while, obtaining a promo photo that I have never seen in the wild. I knew it existed, but I've never been able to get my hands on it. So that's the fun part / frustrating part of collecting promo photos is, there's always that, well, what if I do bump into that promo someday? And you're going to, if you stay with it and I'm on eBay every day. Now you got to be careful on eBay. There are a lot of people that are selling fakes and selling copies and trying to make a quick buck. But, I know a lot of the reputable sellers that have been doing it for years and years. And, you can tell when something is authentic. Sometimes people will pop up out of nowhere and you're like, whoa, that's legit, and it's just nice to, I don't know, it's fun to just type in a name every day that you're looking for. And hey, maybe you fail for 5 years, but hey, that 6th year, there it is,
I mean, there's just so many variables in the promo photo world that can put people off. But if people take the time to indulge those variables, it could be a very meaningful and lucrative hobby. Collecting these promo photos, to me, I see them as better than ring worn. I see them as better than just autographs, because these doggone things were not meant to be collected. That's the big thing for me, is that most of the DJs and little mom and pop restaurants and businesses that received these media packages just took them as junk mail and threw them away. And rightfully so in a lot of cases. Those people who were not interested in professional wrestling was nowhere near as popular as it is today. And no one could have ever thought that something like that would be collectible. So to me, that fits all the criteria for me to want to get involved in the original promo photo collecting community, because there's not so much out there. Like, for example, the Beanie Babies craze. I mean, that doesn't appeal to me, nor do the Pops. And I know that's probably a minority opinion, but they can just continue to crank them out. And when you got somebody who can factory create something and they called it collectible, to me, it's not collectible. It's just going to end up collecting dust somewhere. And I just don't see those things holding their value the way I see an original promo photo holding its value because of its finite availability. Like, for example, I don't know if you mind, I'll show you this one real quick.
Let's see.
This is double signed by Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon. This is an original Coliseum video promo photo. It's got a full letter of authenticity. And these two are my absolute favorite commentary team. These are the two people I listened to growing up. These are the voices of the WWF for me. So when I think of the commentary team from when I was a kid, these are the people I think of. To have them in the clearest image possible, dual signed on this promo photo, to me is absolutely one of the most meaningful pieces I could own. And on top of that, if somebody ever asked me to put a price on this, how could I? I couldn't.
Right.
So if I hear an outlandish price, that might spark my interest, and it might not, but that's the best way to go with a collector like me if you want to get some of my pieces. I went so far as to purchase this microscope, this digital microscope, so that I can zoom in on the pixels of the original promo, because the pixels on an original promo are much smaller than they are on copy photos. Also, you'll be able to see the red and blue copy ink on copies much clearer with these microscopes. So I invested in the hobby. I sat on the shoulders of giants such as yourself, Mike Ford, and other promo photo collectors that have been gracious enough to give me education. And now I believe that education has culminated into I guess an area where I can be somewhat knowledgeable, and I can now focus my collection the way I want to focus my collection on pieces like that.
Yeah, exactly. And you've got one of the biggest pieces out there. I mean, a signed original Andre the Giant promo photo. You have that handy?
I do. Yeah, I do. One of the things I tell people about this promo before I show it is what I love about it is I believe I could be pronouncing this word wrong. Provenance, right? Or provenance?
Provenance,
right? I always say provenance. I think Dan Sky may have told me that it was provenance, but I like provenance. I like provenance.
That's how I've always said
it. This is a PSA graded 8 Andre the Giant autograph, so it's a near mint autograph. And the reason why I believe the provenance on this is not somebody's past artwork piece, like many have unfortunately gotten, is because this beautiful drunk giant forgot to strike the A. And I don't think any forger in their right mind would forget to strike the A on an Andre the Giant signature like that. This is an original promo from 1987, which same year as WrestleMania 3, which I love. I didn't bring it up, but I do have a black and white Hogan 87 original promo that's signed that says WWF Heavyweight Champion at the top. I'm sure you're familiar with that promo.
Yeah.
And these two are eventually going to end up in a shadow box together and have one of the most beautiful WrestleMania 3 displays the hobby's ever seen. So yeah, this is my pride and joy. This is definitely on the top of the Basement of Champions lists. It is in the exhibition collection, obviously, and no, it is not available for sale. But that is absolutely one of my favorites. Yeah,
man, doesn't get much better than that. Now, is there a piece out there that maybe you've always wanted and you haven't obtained yet, or you're on the hunt for as we speak?
I'd like to replace that Rocky Maivia because I'm losing sleep every night that I don't. I've looked on the market, which I'm sure that the buyer of my piece did too. He probably had his finger on the pulse of the Maivia market for a year before he knew he had no choice but to make an offer to me. They come few and far between. In my particular collection, I wouldn't accept a Rocky Maivia P-Series promo signed The Rock. I don't like that. I don't feel that it belongs. I feel like I'll look at it every time and something will be missing, something will be off. Maybe it's my OCD. I don't know, but I know there's a bunch out there where The Rock signed The Rock on a Rocky Maivia promo. That's not going to have any room in my collection, but I would love to replace that. I'd like to get more Vince. I have a ukulele which I have downstairs. I should have brought it up. It's just inscribed to the gills by Stone Cold and by Kurt Angle. I need to get Deborah on there, and I would love to get Vince on there. It's a little ukulele in tribute to their comedy sketch where Stone Cold was playing the guitar and Kurt Angle had the little cowboy hat on. That was a special moment for me too, as a fan. Combining two of my favorite genres, professional wrestling and comedy, was something that I had never experienced before. So while I'm sitting there in love with the product, they were also making me laugh, which was something new to me, and it actually elevated my experience as a wrestling fan. So I wanted to commemorate that moment as well with that ukulele. I was going to do the big guitar, but I thought the ukulele was more fitting as a more collectible piece. And I'll have to send you a photo of that later on. I didn't bring it up. Yeah. But I think that would be what I'm after is certain people. Like I know you've seen my WrestleMania poster that has over 110 signatures. I think 120 signatures on it now. I'd like to get Ricky Steamboat on there. I'd like to get Vince, Triple H, Shane, Stephanie. I'd like to get Hillbilly Jim on there, who's not on there. So I have some signings that I'm waiting in the wings for. But as far as pieces, I just feel like I am whole with that for now. But as you know, and as you experienced, Joe, you don't know what you don't know. Sometimes a piece just pops up on your feed and you get the wide eyes, right? And you look for a price anywhere you can find one. You look down at the comments, hope to God it hasn't been claimed yet, right?
Yeah.
And then you jump into the DMs and you're like, hey, let's talk about this piece. That happens to me, I'd say at least once or twice a month.
Sure.
It doesn't always, formulate into a deal. In fact, most times it doesn't. But that impulse drives my collection sometimes. And I don't know that I'm seeking anything else out, exactly something there. It's really now just I'm seeing what I want through the Facebook pages and what's available for sale.
Yeah. And for fans that are, maybe looking to start collecting promo photos, there are obviously the Basement of Champions page on Facebook, the Promo Photo Mania page on Facebook. Two great pages there, more than willing to help as far as pointers and tips and whatever questions you may have in regards to getting into the hobby, collecting, what you're supposed to be looking for, that sort of thing. Even if you're somebody who's already got a collection but looking to unload it and know nothing about it, or obtained a collection and just they want to move it, well, same thing. We're here to educate you and help move it along to homes that greatly appreciate each piece, whether it's bought as a collection or bought individually. My website is allaccessentertainment.com. That's Axxess with 2 X's. Once you're on the site, you can click on promo photos. We've got a promo photo section. It's still in the works. I've actually been working heavily on it this week. So I would say within another month or so, there is going to be so much information on there. Tons of pictures, tons of tidbits of what to look for, all the different types of promo photos, the different styles, what should be, what shouldn't be, so that's going to be a nice spot to hit. And just kind of, if you're in a quick fix, you see something on eBay and you're like, oh, is that supposed to be there? I can't remember. Hop on over to that page, click on promo photos, and you'll be able to maybe answer some of those questions, quickly. And Tom, we're definitely going to have a part 2 with you. We got a lot more to cover, a lot more to ask. Thank you so much for joining us for part 1. It's Tommy Twos for the Basement of Champions for Mr. Thomas Hernandez. I'm your host, Joseph Bruen. This has been the All Access Entertainment Podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and we will see you guys next time.